I am so happy to have on the podcast today Nicole Stewart, who is the founder and president of the National Association of Black Microschool Leaders, as well as the president and leader of Legacy Prep Collegiate Microschool in Lakeland, Florida, that opened this fall with about 15 students, grades 3rd through 12th. And going well so far. So, Nicole Stewart, welcome to the Liberated Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here.
I am so glad that you are here. I love both of your initiatives, and I'm excited to talk about both of them and your pathway to education entrepreneurship, which began many years ago in education. You told me before we started to record that you were a public school teacher for about 18 years and later shifted into an assistant principal role. I'd love to sort of start there of what made you decide to go into education to begin with, and what was your experience like as a classroom teacher for so many years?
So my pathway to the classroom was kind of iffy, so to speak. I come from a very entrepreneurial family. I have one side of my family that is in the restaurant business, catering business. My stepfather owned a pool construction company, so I kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial space. Um, and then the other side were very career focused. They were educators and very career focused people. So it was kind of a toss up for me. But I looked at my mother, who owned a restaurant and a catering company, and my dad, and they worked so hard, and they had their days and nights were consumed. I was like, maybe I should go to college. And so that's what I decided to do. And I majored in education. For me, it was the only option. It was either I take over my mother's or father's business, or I go into education. Those were my two options. So I chose education. Um, I went into education for what I believe is just influenced by the teachers that I had. I had amazing teachers, and I just wanted to be like them. I wanted to have the same effect on children that they had on me. So I spent a lot of years in the classroom with a very idealistic view of what I was doing. I just wanted to help the way that teachers and had helped me. But like I said, I spent a lot of years in the classroom and a few years as an admin. I started out um, making that impact, making the
Yeah.
impact that I wanted to make. I was very happy with my career. And, somewhere around year 10, things started to shift for me. I started to really question if I started to watch the children as things began to change. I started to watch the children. The children that came in were different. Not that they were different children, just the way that they were interacting, enjoying school, learning. It was, it looked like it was more of a struggle for them. Nobody was enjoying themselves. I wasn't, and they weren't
And
either.
and when was this, Nicole? I guess what timeline was that when you noticed that shift, and what do you sort of hypothesize was part of it?
Oh my God. So I do have a hypothesis about what
Yeah.
happened, but um, I think it was a combination of things. Okay. Um, I don't want to blame it on just on public schools, but there's just a shift, right? The internet became a thing. Um, Video games became more of a thing, and uh, public education from the top down started to change. And to me, it felt like it happened all at once.
And
Um,
when was this? Was this like the early 2000s, the
this was the
2010s?
this was
Okay.
this was around 2010
Okay.
for
Yep.
me. It was around 2010. And I felt like it was just a big shift. Like the kids weren't as attentive or interested in school, and things had changed. Our focus had changed and how we were teaching the kids, what we were teaching them, and our limitations as teachers as
Mm.
well. And I think I think the combination of those things was just a really bad mixture, and it changed education.
And of
It
course, about sort of less than a decade prior to that, 2001, there was the introduction of No Child Left Behind, and that kind of focused on high stakes standardized testing,
yes.
pushing academics to ever younger ages. Do you think that that was also part of what
Well,
was going on?
it's absolutely what was a
Yeah.
part. You see, when it happens at first, you don't see the real effect of it.
Yeah.
You know? You don't see the effect in year one, two, maybe even five or six. Um, you begin to see it once everything has changed, once the kids have had years and years of the same type of education or miseducation by
Mm.
my summation. And then you get a kid who's coming to school because they're being told to, not because they want to. They're coming to school and they don't have the same joy in learning because we are limited in what we can teach them. Nobody, like I said, nobody was having fun.
Mm.
The teachers, we had the handcuffs on, and many of us, like me, I had a very idealistic view of teaching, and so for me, it was always okay. I'm going to find 5 different ways to teach this lesson because I know that that is what's required. But when you have time constraints, limitation, told exactly what to do and say, and that's the only way, then and then but even though we put the handcuffs on you, you can't really do what you or teach uh, the way that you know is effective. We still expect results.
Yeah.
And it's a no-win situation. It was a no-win situation for me. But I stayed. I stayed because that was the career that I chose. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved the idea of making an impact in the lives of children. And so I hung out for a little while. Um, Somewhere, I believe there was one little girl. I wish I could see her face so vividly. I remember her name. I remember everything. I was teaching fourth grade, and we were studying for. No, we had the writing test coming up, and she was so distraught. She said, I'm gonna fail." She was the absolutely brilliant creative writer. She could not, she couldn't understand why she had to write the way she was being told to write. And my response to her in the presence of my administrator was, "You're brilliant. I want you to stop crying because whether you pass this test or not, you're going to be okay." So later that day, I was told, "I can't say that." I said,
Mm.
"With your heart, I can't tell her she's brilliant or that she would be okay." She said, no, the part about whether or not she passed the test." And I'm like, okay. So I can't comfort her at all. The only thing that matters in this situation is that she feels that she knows that she has to pass the test. I didn't understand. Um, Both me and the child cried that day because I know it was the end of my teaching career as I knew it. I just
Mm.
didn't want to do it anymore after that day.
Oh, yeah. And just, I mean, here you are trying to say to a student, your grade doesn't define you. You're brilliant, you're gifted, you're cared about. And all that you're hearing from the administrators and all the child is hearing is no, this is what really matters. This is your worth, and it all comes down to this test, and just how heartbreaking that must have felt.
It was absolutely heartbreaking. Fortunately, she did not say that in front of the student,
Okay.
but she said it to me, and you know, it was, like I said, it was the end for me. I knew that I had to find a different way. I put together an advisory group at that point, probably a year later. I put together an advisory group, and I wanted, I wanted to have some I wanted to tell people about my ideas of what I thought school should be. Because, you know, sometimes you have these ideas and it only makes sense to you, right? So I assembled counselors, some educators, and my pastor, and all of those, a couple of different people, about 5 people, and talked to them about what I wanted. And they were amazed. They thought that it was a great idea. This was in 2018, right before the pandemic, and I started talking to them about it. We came up with an entire plan for school, and then it was up to me. Then they sent me off. Now go get funding and figure
And
out
it,
how to do this.
and at that time in 2018 with this small advisory group, was that the model for Legacy Prep Collegiate Microschool, or was that not really on your radar yet? I guess what's the
It was.
difference between
It was.
that
It was
template and now? Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely, that was the name of the school. The
Oh,
name of the
great.
school was Legacy Prep. It has never changed. And that is the model for our current school. What I didn't know at the time was that I was creating a micro school. There was
Mm,
no verbiage for it,
yeah.
but that's what I was creating. And then when I saw it, that name, and I saw the definition, I was like, yes, there's others out there who believe the same as I do.
And so were you preparing to launch when COVID hit, or I guess what transpired for you between the idea in 2018 and launch this fall?
Well, I was preparing, however, the pieces of the puzzle didn't exactly fall in place. I needed a location that made fiscal sense for a small school, and I needed also uh, time. Like I needed a space. I needed space, right? And so what happens is that I go to different, I was living in Gainesville at the time. And so I went to different churches, and it just, nothing came of it.
Mm.
Nothing. And
Trying to
I
find a
was,
location?
I
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
little, it was a little disheartening,
yeah.
to say the least. But I kept at it. I ended up moving to Lakeland. I got married and moved to Lakeland. And that's where doors began to open.
So what happened next, and kind of what time frame are we talking about where things really started rolling?
So when around 2022, the end of 2022, is when I actually started putting things in place, right? Trying to put things in place. And so I found a location, and the first thing I wanted to do is go to the private school route, because that's what I knew.
From
I
your
knew
time as an assistant principal in a private
from
school,
my
is that right?
time, yes, I knew the private schools, and not only that, um, I thought that I didn't have enough information to know that micro schools didn't have to be private schools at the moment. And so I was going the private school route. And so I found a space. I did all the things that they told me to do. I had to, at some point, they told me, you have to go to the building department and apply for a permit. And so I did. And then somewhere in that process, they gave me about a 54-page report of all the things that I needed to do to become a private school. Like every department in the city gave me a report. That was their process, their procedure. And again, of course, I'm like, okay, another roadblock. This is a major roadblock, right?
Mm.
So I went back. I said, maybe it's the facility. The church that I attend was the place where I was actually going to open the school. At that is actually where the school is. And so I was confused. So why am I talking with the they were telling me that I needed to put shrubs around
Mm.
the building and that they needed to be 5 feet apart. And I was like, this building has been here for 50 years. Why do I need, and there was a school here previously.
Wow.
And so there were just a lot of hoops that I had to jump through in order to get to where I am right now, even with the city, with
And
everybody.
was some of that just Nicole for people listening? And I know many founders and prospective founders have gone or are going through similar roadblocks that you're similar to what you're describing. Did you just keep pushing back a little bit and saying like,
Well,
you know, the regulations that you're asking me to comply with are for traditional large public or private schools, and here I am a micro school. I mean, was it some of that, or
it was a
how did
lot.
it work?
It was a lot of that. So what happened initially was that I began to push back.
Mm.
Um, and as I began to talk, I used all of my resources. I went to Yes Every Kid. I did all the things to see what exactly do I do. And so what was determined is that they were giving me information as if we were becoming a private school. Now, this is right before I kind of got to the spot right before it was last July or the July before that things changed where churches didn't have to be rezoned
Yeah.
in order. So I was blessed right at that moment because I didn't have to go through the zoning process anymore.
Mm.
Um, and so things opened up for me in that respect. I still haven't, and so I can pursue the private school route, but I haven't. I also figured out in in that moment that I could just become a licensed tutoring center and operate my micro school.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so there's a lot there. I just want to unpack a bit for listeners and viewers.
Mhm.
First, you mentioned a zoning sort of deregulation bill that got passed in the Florida state legislature that
Yes.
allows micro schools and similar learning models to operate in more places without some of these
Mhm.
regulatory hurdles. So that is glad to hear that that worked out really well for you. You mentioned Yes Every Kid, and
Mhm.
yeslegal.org is a nonprofit that provides pro bono legal assistance for education entrepreneurs, founders, and prospective founders who are encountering some of these challenges. So folks can go visit yeslegal.org for that guidance. And then, yeah, so then you mentioned that you thought you had to go the private school route and then realized that actually you could use sort of a different business entity like a tutoring center. And so, what was it about that model that appealed to you, maybe more than the private school? What did you gain from using sort of a different structure, different organizational structure?
Well, a few things. One is that I did not have to put that I could start, right?
Mm.
Did not have to put the emotional and financial stress on myself that could possibly have been barriers to getting started, right? And so doing it that way allowed me to start. And if I wanted to become a private school, I could, right? So it allowed me to start in stages. so to speak.
Mm,
So if I
yeah.
wanted to stay and operate at this stage forever, I can. But if I want to go up the food chain, so to speak, and go to a private school, I could. I don't think I will, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Tell me why. Yeah.
Yes. And so, one of the things that I really love about this model is that I get this is where personalized education comes into play. I don't have to. Say, for instance, my beautiful girl, my beautiful writer that wanted to write creatively, right? Um, I had to test her. I had to test her. She had to cry and be stressed, and that doesn't have to happen in this model. But in private school, we are required to test our children, which we still test. I still test them.
Yeah.
They don't know us to test though. They
Yes, I
don't
hear that a lot. Right. Yeah, because you
know.
want to know, as a teacher, as an educator, how young people are doing so that you can tailor learning accordingly, but you don't need that pressure, and that kind of standardization put on each child. So, oh, that's
Exactly.
great. So are all your students then technically considered homeschoolers, or how often are they coming? What does that look like?
So all of my students are considered homeschoolers, and that is both good and bad. It has, I'll tell you about the bad part a little later, but it's good in the sense that we have a community of parents who actually are a part of their children's learning. And so that's the great part of it. So, yeah, they're all considered homeschoolers.
And are they coming full-time, part-time, a mix?
There's a mix. I have about 10 part-time students, and no, 10 full-time students, 5 part-time students. So they either come, my 2 day are considered part-time, my 4 day are considered full-time.
Got it.
Mhm.
And you said that before we recorded, you said that 100% of them are attending with some degree of tuition assistance through Florida's school choice programs, their new universal education savings account, various scholarships. How important are those policies and those programs for your families?
Those are extremely important. I know that many of my parents would not be able to accommodate, they would not be able to pay tuition. Many of them, even though they have the scholarship, the balance that's left over is a challenge for them. And I believe that I know, in fact, that they are very grateful for the scholarship. And I'm grateful because I get to, the students get to come and be in a space where they're comfortable and where they're loved and where they're learning. And so I appreciate that. I'm really happy about the scholarship. I'm really happy that they expanded it in the way that they did, to include homeschoolers.
Yeah.
It's a really amazing thing, and it's making a world of difference for many students.
Now, you mentioned sort of the good and bad about the homeschooling designation. Tell us a little bit about the downsides.
Well, one of the issues is that a lot of parents are afraid to take responsibility of their children's education. They're just afraid. They don't feel capable. Um, they don't feel like they have the time. And so when you talk about homeschool, they automatically, their eyes glaze over. Like, I
Mm,
don't want to do that. I don't want to be responsible because they have to, in Florida, they have to sign a letter saying that they're homeschooling and that they're responsible for their child's education. And for some of them, they just don't want to be. They've been accustomed. I do what I tell them, and then they, of course, we're a very small school. We're a small school in a big church, right? But they tend to, many parents especially in the community where I am. There's a lot of Black and Brown families in this community. They put their trust in the public school system. They drop their kids off and they cross their fingers, and and they've been okay with that for many years. And so it's a process of educating and re-educating about what schools are.
Yeah.
They believe that micro schools are new, and I have to tell them they're absolutely not new. They've existed. Public schools are new.
Yeah, that's
Really,
such a good
but
point.
yeah.
Yeah, and so do they realize then these, parents, because I can totally appreciate parents hearing, oh, okay, you have to, register as a homeschooler and now you're in charge of your child's education and that feeling very overwhelming or intimidating for some families. But are you able to explain to them that actually that's what's so great about the microschooling model is that you're sharing in that responsibility, you're there to assist them, and if they want, they can have their kids attending your microschool, full time as a full-time schooling alternative that still is family-centered and personalized. It seems like it's the best of both worlds. Is that sort of the
It
the
is.
sell that you give?
Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
absolutely the sell that I give. And the thing is that most parents, when they get it, they really get it.
Yeah.
They love the idea of that. They love the idea of being a part of the learning community. They really do, because, you know, essentially a lot of times parents have been locked out.
Yeah.
Um, of learning with their children. They don't know what they're learning. They come home with homework, and parents kind of scratch their head and and Google whatever is
Yeah.
going on. But actually, they're really a part of the learning community here, and they really do appreciate it. And I really feel that it's a matter of educating parents that of exactly what micro schools are and how they can really how their children can really benefit, and not just their children, how they can benefit. Because I can tell you that my parents, and I believe all of the micro schools that I have, many of the micro schools that I have been a part of, either just visiting or whatever. I've seen parents just, once they've become a part of the community, they kind of, it's kind of like a switch, right?
Mm.
You have you can sit in the classroom with your child. You can go on the field trip with them. You can call. You can have questions. You can send an email. It's okay. It's all okay, because we're one little tight knit community.
Ah, I just love that.
Mhm.
And so tell us a little bit about your educational philosophy, the curriculum, kind of your approach at Legacy Prep Collegiate Microschool.
Okay, so our approach is we have two pathways for our students. And we ask, they don't have to stick to that pathway, but they can choose collegiate, or they can choose career.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we do, we have a particular focus. We take them through. They all go through the STEM process, engineering. They go through medical. That's their first year.
Hmm.
As of next year, it will be sixth grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth. They will go through the three different processes with us. It'll be engineering, medical, and oh my God, I just had a brain melt. so so what we'll do is the sixth grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth will go through that process. And once they get in ninth grade, they'll choose a pathway. They'll choose either college or career.
Mm.
And we will help them to actually create either through, we'll have help them to choose their path. And if they've also have a partnership with the local college, so that they can
Oh,
do dual
great.
enrollment, and that sort of thing. And so we have other partners, which are
Yeah.
corporations that we partner with as well, so that they can get experience out in the real world.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that. Yeah.
that's what it's about. And that's really, this change for me from K-5 to 3 to 12. That's really what it was about. The parents really needing, um, they needed someone to hold their children's hand and walk them through the process. What's really amazing about the community that I serve is that they have very specific needs. And one of the things that I've worked on probably all of my career, when I stopped teaching, the first thing that I did, um, the year that I stopped teaching, the year before I became a widow, and a single mother of 3 boys. Um, One of the first things I did, and it was sort of therapeutic for me, was I created a curriculum for a mentoring program. I created a financial literacy curriculum and an entrepreneurship curriculum. And the reason why I did that, it wasn't for anyone except my own children. I was wondering about what they needed to learn with their father not being with us anymore. And I created that. And it was really funny because the kids that come to me are those same kids. They're the kids that I believed that I had at that particular moment that needed more. And these are the kids that come to me now. It's really the beauty of micro schools, because they never get those gaps filled somewhere else.
Yeah.
Are able to get, reading, writing, arithmetic, but they also receive so much more. And those are the things that attract. I notice that I attract a particular type of student. And for me, it's amazing to see it actually all happen.
Yeah, so you had thought that this was just going to be more elementary school level initially, and then now it's really emerged to be more third through
Yeah.
12th graders. And I,
Mhm.
I love hearing more and more stories of microschool founders collaborating with, well, in your case, local businesses and organizations, but especially colleges for dual enrollment,
Yes.
because I think that that provides a way of expanding microschools into the high school years and providing opportunities for teenagers to have core academic courses or career preparation courses that are offered. Are you working with a community college, a four-year college? What is that
We're,
arrangement?
we're working with a community college.
Yeah.
And so that's some of the things that we're doing. And we're trying to, we have students that want to be engineers. We have students who want to be hairdressers, students that want to be nurses. And so what I've learned is that I need more connections. so, but we're working on it day by day.
I just love it.
Yeah.
So exciting to hear about that. So I do want to now just shift gears a bit and talk about your other entrepreneurial venture, which is so exciting. You're the president and founder of the National Association of Black Microschool Leaders. Tell us about that organization and why you decided to create it.
So that organization is like it's something else that makes me extremely happy. I think micro schools in general are a source of joy for me. Just the fact that they exist, and the reason why I was at Vela and I just saw a bunch of people who looked like me who were also in love with micro schools. And so I was like, I wonder, do they think what I think? I'm always like that. I'm sorry. So I'm like, I wonder, do they think what I think? I believe that micro schools have a very specific purpose. I believe that the very nature of micro schools address some of the reading deficits that Black children have. Just the very fact that micro schools are small, the very fact that there's a lot of personalized attention. That is what is needed to fill those holes. And it's something that other school types cannot do as well. And so that was my thought. And so I said, okay, so this is what I'm going to do, right? And so it kind of started there. But
And this
I,
was at VelaCon, Nicole,
this
is
is
that
what
right?
it was
So Vela,
at.
yeah, Vela, the Vela Education Fund, a national philanthropic nonprofit and founder network supporting
Yes,
now over 3,000 education entrepreneurs just like you.
yes.
And they hosted their inaugural VelaCon summit to bring founders together in DC earlier this year. So I'm so glad that from that convening, you
Mhm.
created yet another organization. So yeah, share a little bit more about the association.
So the association, the goal is to increase the number of Black-led micro schools. I believe that that there cannot be that Black students will not experience choice in its fullest form unless we do that, unless we increase the number of Black-led micro schools. And so that is one of the main objectives. The other we already talked about, to raise awareness in marginalized communities, that the fact that there are other options other than private, other than public. There's homeschooling, there's microschooling, there are other options, and they're not uh, things that are they're not hard, right? Because you think most people think that if I have to homeschool, then I can't work, I can't those are the thoughts. And a part of that, a part of what we do is educate the communities about what microschooling is, what homeschooling is, and that is accessible to them.
And so, with the association, is it sort of membership based? If listeners and viewers are running microschools, if they are Black microschool leaders, should they join the association? Are you looking to help encourage new founders to launch? I guess what are some of the mechanics there?
So we are helping new founders to launch. And this upcoming year, we will be having different accelerators in different states to help
Great.
founders launch, new founders launch in some of our choice states. And so we will be doing that. We also will be building infrastructure for support for these micro schools. We will be reaching out to churches, HBCUs, civic organizations to either support micro schools in their city, to create micro schools on their campuses, to just provide, to be the mouth and the ears, because did I say idealistic to you before? Okay, so I'm gonna.
Idealistic but doable. I mean, it seems like you're making things happen, you know?
I believe that micro schools will really help us in a
Yeah.
lot of areas where we're weak, and I do believe that. So I can tell you that after I wrote my curriculum, I made it a point to try to get it into schools like the ones that I worked in, which were very challenging, behaviorally, you know, lots of issues with reading, those types of things. So I believed that that this curriculum would help because the basis of it is a mentoring curriculum, right? Lots of red tape, lots of lots of we can't do this. It's impossible. We'll have to get the president of the United States to sign off on it. It just seemed like such an impossibility. Yes, we want to help them, but we don't even know how to make this happen, right? And it's not just what I created, it's anything. It had just become very difficult to help the students in a meaningful way. And what I found is that when something is not working, and it continues to not work, do you, like, for instance, if your car doesn't work, do you just push it around? This is my car. This is my car. I'm just going to push it. Does it make sense to hold on to something that's not working? So I took this another route. So these children, they still need those things. I know, because of who I am, I'm going to receive those same children. The same children I taught, they're going to come to me in this micro school. They just are. Because I believe that it's my purpose and I believe that it will happen. So as they come, I know if I know that this is what they need, I have to have it for them. And I no longer have that obstacle in front of me.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, what is your sense? Obviously, you're building up the association and creating accelerator programs. I did want to ask you, you mentioned choice states. Are you helping founders to launch in states that have robust school choice policies that enable education funding to follow families? That's what you mean by choice states?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the reason why we do that is, I think it's obvious, because it helps to sustain the business of microschools, and we don't have to question whether or not parents will actually be able to pay for school. They will be, at least at some part of it anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Great. So that's happening on the association side. And then I'm curious what your plans are or your vision is for Legacy Prep Collegiate Microschool. Are you planning on expanding? I guess what does the future look like for that program?
So, so let me say this. When I was talking about the mentoring program, the idea for Legacy Prep is to create a school model where that is the base of it, where every child that comes into a Legacy Prep school, no matter where it is, that they will get the same mentoring, that they will get the same financial literacy course, the same entrepreneurship course. One of the things that's the basis of our model. Also, we are a collegiate academy. We have tracks. Like I said, we have the collegiate and the career track. That's also a part of our model. And so did I say that we were Christian? I should say that, right? To me, it's a given, but we are also a Christian school. And so Bible is a part of our curriculum.
Great. And so you're looking are you going to open up additional Legacy Prep micro schools? Or are you helping others? Is it a franchise model? What does that growth look
Well,
like?
we have not gone that far.
Okay.
We don't know. I know that I will be opening up another legacy.
Okay. Amazing.
That I know. I would like for Legacy to be a franchise. The reason why is that I can't be everywhere, and the idea, like I said before, I want to is to fill those holes for students, and a lot of people have those holes. I was lucky enough to have parents who were entrepreneurs, and then on the other side, I had college graduates, and so I had a path laid out for me. They taught me about money. They taught me all the things, and there were no gaps. But some students, for generations, they don't have anybody to give that. They don't have good information passed along to them, and so, and it becomes a problem for them at some point in their life. And so we want to be the school that helps with that as well, and that's how we plan to do it.
Love it. So, as we begin to wrap up, Nicole, I'd love to hear your advice for other aspiring founders who are listening or watching. What would you say to them as they begin their entrepreneurial journey?
I would say do it. I would tell them if if it's in your heart to do, I would say do it. There is a way it can get done. Whether it's, and I know that this not, whether it's moving to a state that actually where choice is uh, vibrant, a community where choice is vibrant, and you can actually thrive building a school in that community. No matter what it is, I say do it, make it happen, because the reason why is that when there's something like that that's in your heart to do, um, a lot of times you just it'll stay. It'll stay and it won't go away because it's a part of your purpose. The other thing I would say to them is that it's not as hard as you think. Um, when obstacles came my way, I had to lean on my resources to help me. There are a lot of resources out there. There's Vela, there's Yes Every Kid, and Yes Legal. There's microschooling solutions, National Microschooling Center. There's so many things
Yes.
that are there, so many resources at your fingertips. And I would say get into these social media groups. There are people there that can help you. I met my Microschool mentor in a social media group, and she turned out that she lived here in Lakeland.
So
And
great.
she held my hand through the process. And I think that's really why I love the National Association of Black Microschool Leaders, because I want to do what someone did for me. I want to hold someone's hand through the process. I have become a better person, a better leader, a better teacher in this process, and just a happier person, because I let the thing that wasn't working go and embrace the thing that was right in front of me. And it's benefiting me. It's benefiting my families, and it can happen for you.
Ah, it's just so inspiring, Nicole. I absolutely love it. So, if my listeners and viewers want to learn more about the National Association of Black Microschool Leaders and Legacy Prep, what is the best way for them to reach out to learn more about both of your initiatives?
Sure. So, My Legacy Prep, you can find us at mylegacyprep.com. You can also, the Black Microschool Leaders, you can find us at nabml.org. That's nabml.org. Or you can find us at Black Microschool Leaders on social media.
Great. And we'll put links to those websites as well in the show notes. Just such a great conversation, Nicole. I'm again so inspired by what you're building and look forward to following your growth and impact over the coming years. Nicole Stewart, thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
Thank you for having me.